Hey there guys, alright, today we are back with some more geography now, and we are returning to Africa. Yeah, last episode wasn't an African country. Yeah, last week was the Maldives. Okay, I'm remembering the past. Before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love it if you joined the Discord and followed me over at Twitch. I've got nothing to say here about Mali before the video begins, so let's just go ahead and dive right in.
Hey everybody, GeographyNow.com is finally launched, and since you guys asked for it, we made you guys Geography Now notepads and buttons. Stop by the website if you'd like to get one. Thanks for the support, guys. Now, if there's one country that holds all the deepest ancient secrets and treasures of historical Africa, you might say Egypt, Ethiopia, which, okay, yeah, those are viable candidates. But try a country with the richest guy that ever existed, with cities flourishing in science, astronomy, and literature, and gold. Looks like good old Jolly Molly just stepped in the ring.
It's time to learn geography now!
Hey everybody, I'm your host Barbs. Today, Mali may look pretty different from what it used to look thousands of years ago, but there's still a fascinating story of people that have made this fast-growing nation their home. Let's jump back into the sands of Africa, shall we? The name Mali originally is derived from the Mandika word for hippopotamus, but later it came to mean the place where the king lives. Either way, there's like a connotation of strength behind it. First of all, Mali is landlocked, located in Western Africa, bordered by 8 other countries, straddling the prime meridian near the city of Goa, which means if you visit, you can stand in 2 different hemispheres at once. They also have no specific singular northernmost or easternmost points, as the borders are straight lines. The country is made up of 10 regions, and the capital Bamako, which administers itself as its own district entity. Mali is kind of split into 2 separate parts: the fertile sub-Saharan southwest, where about 90% of the population lives, and the arid Saharan northeast, which makes up about 65% of the country's landmass. The north is where the tension started between the communities, mostly ethnic Tuaregs, against the central Malian government, vying for secession into a whole new self-proclaimed independent area they call Azawad, led by the MNLA, or National Movement for the Liberation of Azawad. In 2012, fights broke out, and shortly the Malian government came in and regained control. The president visited the headquarters in Kidal to seek talks. However, today the push for autonomy and nationalism still kind of lives on. It's a tricky situation. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Most travel agencies give at least some advisories against visiting these regions for now, due to the somewhat unstable political atmosphere.
But I wanted to see Timbuktu.
You can, just use your best discretion and be smart, that's all. After the capital, Bamako, the largest cities are Sisako and Mopti, and the country only has one main international airport, Bamako's Senu International. Technically, Gao also has an international airport, but it only services the Dutch Air Force and UN peacekeeping mission flights. Other regional airports like Timbuktu and Mopti are around, but with either suspended or limited service, which is sad because Timbuktu is like such a historic place of significance. We'll get into that later. Now, the country has a vast domain that extends all the way to the middle of the Sahara. However, there is only one trans-Saharan roadway that crosses into Algeria at the border of El Khali, which Algeria put a double wall barricade around on their side. Otherwise, the Timbuktu region has no highway that extends to the north, and virtually no people live there. However, some intrepid nomads and even tourists either take a car ride or camel caravan to what might be considered the most remote, isolated outpost in the world, Tau Deni, the famous historic salt mine that people have been excavating from for centuries. Now, we'll explain a little more later in the video on how Mali is very historically significant, not just in Africa, but in the entire world. And today you can see former remnants of its glory in certain areas. Some places of interest might include places like the National Museum in Bamako, the City Center Market, the Artisan Market, Independence Monument, the Rose Dune, the Dandan Waterfalls, Fort de Medine, Bamako Grand Mosque, the National Zoo, pretty much anything in the fabled city of Timbuktu, the pottery venues of Ségou, cliff villages of Bandigara, the Emperor Askia tomb, and the entire country is famous for having multiple traditional style mud brick mosques and buildings. However, the one that most people know about would probably be the most iconic landmark of the country, the Great Mosque of Djenné. It is the largest mud brick building in the world, made in its complete form in 1907, refurbished every year after weather damage, and it's featured on the coat of arms, which we will discuss on Flag Friday. Stay tuned. Otherwise, the real powerhouse of Mali, though, would have to be the one amazing life source almost the entire population depends on, the Niger River. Which brings us to... Every so often we get those countries that has like a lot of land, but almost the entire population is crammed into one small, comfortable urban area that few venture outside of.
Wait till you get to my country's episode.
Oh, whoa, you again.
Hi. Yeah, what's up?
What was your name again?
John?
How'd you get on the show?
I've been on the past few episodes.
Oh, yeah. Welcome to the team. First of all, Mali lies on what is known as the West African Craton, which is like some kind of geological plate zone that people who study rocks are probably interested in. The country is divided into three main physical regions: the hot, dry Saharan desert in the north, the semi-arid Sahel savanna zone in the middle, and the tropical savanna and light forest zone in the far south. The tallest peak, Hombori Tondo, can be found in the east-central Mopti region, and just to skip away, you find this interestingly spearhead-shaped crevice-looking thing. That is Lake, quote-unquote, Lake Fagibin, which is supposed to be the largest lake in the country, acting as like a reservoir when the rivers overflood, but today it's almost completely dried up and reduced to nothing more than a semi-arid lake bed. Instead, most of the overflow is diverted to these little guys under it, lakes Tele, Oro, and Fati. Nonetheless, the largest permanent lake would be Lake Manatali in the south, an artificial lake created by the Manatali Dam. Nonetheless, with water, there's only one guy that everybody is paying attention to: the Niger River. The entire Malian economy is almost confined to this riverine area as it traverses 5 of the regions, including Timbuktu and Gao in the north. It passes through the capital Bamako as well as every major city of commercial significance. Otherwise, further to the west lie the branches of the Senegal River, which completes the backbone of the country. And it's also here in this area you can probably find the national animal, the leopard. The rainy season in the south
Rawr.
sometimes causes the Niger River to flood, creating the Niger River Delta, a vast network of seasonal wetlands, much like the Okavango Delta we studied in the Botswana episode.
Seasonal river delta flooding. It's like Mother Nature moisturizing her skin after a rash.
Ooh, alright, triple shot of espresso break. You know what time it is? Noah, you know the deal. Take over.
Let's fucking go.
Despite the presence of water, only about 10% of the land is forested and only about 6% is arable, even though about 70% of the workforce is engaged in agriculture, making about 42% of the GDP. Nonetheless, crops are not the country's largest product, but rather gold and cotton, which make up about 80% of export earnings alone. Mali is Africa's 3rd largest gold producer, and the most profitable mines are found in the southeast Bambouk Mountains. Speaking of resources, food! In Mali, there are a lot of different regional cuisines that different people groups are known for, but some nationwide known dishes might include things like Malian-style jollof
Ooh,
rice,
yeah.
jablani juice, meat in peanut sauce, Tuareg-style alabaja, bakoye, saga saga, Malian tea, and poulet yassa. Yeah, poulet as in the French word for chicken, which tells you a little bit of the backstory for these people. Let's discuss more in...
Bum bum.
Once again, that was Noah. Thank you a lot, man. Follow him on Instagram. Send him fan mail. Mali is interesting because it's a nation that struggles, yes, but they do it in like the most colorful, unique, exuberant, flashy way, and every region has their own type of flashiness. First of all, the country has about 18 million people and has the 3rd highest birth rate in the world, expected to double in population by 2035. The population
Damn.
is pretty diverse, made up of several ethnic groups. About half of the population falls under the broader Mande group, about 16% fall under the various Fula or Fulani peoples, 13% under the Voltaic groups, and 10%, mostly in the north, are Tuareg and Moorish peoples, and the rest are made up of other people groups with a sizable Songhai minority. They use the West African CFA franc as their currency, they use the type C and E plug outlets, and they drive on the right
Thank you. The correct side of the road, people. The right side. All right?
side of the road. Of course, as a former French territory, French was taught and today is the official language. All people groups use it to intercommunicate amongst themselves. However, there are also 13 recognized national languages. Now back to the diversity thing. In previous episodes we did, like Burkina Faso and Gambia, we mentioned the Mande peoples, which make up the largest group in Mali. They are descended from the peoples that would eventually create and maintain the 3 most famous empires of West Africa, the Ghana, Mali, and Songhai.
Woohoo! Yeah, Ghana!
Actually, the Ghana Empire was nowhere near modern-day Ghana and had nothing to do with them.
Ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine. But you
Historically, Mali played a huge role in the trans-Saharan trade routes between the Sahelian kingdoms of North Africa. Timbuktu and Djenné were centers of learning, science, astronomy, and literature in the 14th century. Mansa Musa was disputably one of, if not the most rich man that ever possibly existed. And it wasn't until European sea trade and subsequent famines and invasions by the Moroccans that these empires started to decline. Also, we talked about the Fula and Fulani peoples before. They're spread throughout all of West Africa. About a third of the entire population are pastoralists, making them the world's largest nomadic peoples on the planet. And about 2.5 million live in Mali, which makes the country about 5 to 10% nomadic.
Aren't they like the people that play the Hodu guitar thing?
Yep.
That is like so dope.
They are known for their women's hairstyles, woven hats, and colorful loose accessories and clothing. Then you have the southern groups like the Voltaic, Sanufo, and Bois peoples.
Are those the people that play the balafone? That thing looks like a xylophone. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
So dope.
As well as the famous
Dude. Fucking dope.
Dogon peoples that have the world's longest religious ceremony, the Sigi festival that happens once every 60 years, and the event in itself can last years. They also have the Lake
They have a festival that can last years? Oh, I can't celebrate for that long. I can barely do one single day celebrations, man. I'm a sleepy boy, okay? You get me for one day.
Togo Fish Frenzy at the Sacred Lake once a year. Men jump in and catch as many fish as they can. Then we reach the northern peoples, mostly Tuareg, a people group related to the Berbers in northern Africa. They inhabit the vast Saharan landscape. These people have millennia
I just love that shade of blue. I don't know if it's like the well, it's too light of a blue. Like, you know, it's like the color of the sky, but like that deep blue there that we see in the guy in the background, sort of. That blue is the best blue. All right, best blue. That like royal kind of blue, I think would be the definition for it. It would be the right shade, name. Love that blue. But like, I don't know if it's just because the sand makes it stand out more. God damn, I love that blue.
to the Berbers in northern Africa. They inhabit the vast Saharan landscape. These people have millennia of pre-Islamic history and traditions rooted in desert-adapted tribes and customs found nowhere else on Earth.
Dude, are they the people that play the Imazad instrument thing?
Wow, Keith, you're really on an instrument quest today.
What can I say? It's like so dope, man. You know, guitars, instruments.
Whew, there's a lot of other main people groups and tribes that we could have discussed, but these are the biggest, most notable ones that probably hold the largest influence over the country. Otherwise, faith-wise, Mali is quite unique. There's a saying, Mali is 98% Muslim, 2% Christian, and 100% animist. Much like we studied in the recent Eswatini episode, the majority of Mali's population in the south somewhat adheres to a form of religious pluralism, in this case with Islam. Many claim to be Muslim, mostly in the Sufi order, but syncretize traditional animist practices as to retain connections to their pre-Islamic roots. This, of course, does not fly too well with the Sunni Tuaregs and other people groups in the north, which has been one of the leading factors in domestic conflict. I asked some of you guys, the Muslim geographers, to explain the difference between Sunni and Sufi Islam, and here are what I would say may be some of the most helpful responses I got for clarity. Mainstream Sunnis are from a main branch that focuses more on doctrine and the world affairs happening right now, whereas Sufism is usually from the Malikite branch that teaches a more mystical branch of Islam that focuses on the world after. It follows a direct approach to experience God through things like meditation, prayer, and sometimes even dance and music.
The one thing that I struggled with and couldn't, for whatever reason, just wasn't able to fully grasp when I took a early Islamic history course was once we got into the different sects of Islam. That's where they lost me. I couldn't keep Sufi, Sunni, Shia. I couldn't keep them all like straight. I was where I was lost. Constantly had to like Google it, like look up for, you know, things and stuff like which branch was this or whatever, you know, that sort of thing. I don't know why I just couldn't. One of those things where I just couldn't grasp it.
Depending on the region.
Couldn't
One
firmly
Saudi geography
grasp
told
it.
me that in the broadest stereotypical sense, Sufism is sometimes in certain places kind of seen as like hippie Islam. I don't know, what do you guys think? Would that be kind of like an accurate description? Anyway, for what it's worth, most southern Malian Muslims follow Sufism, whereas northern Malians have a more strict rebel-controlled Sharia implemented society that does not agree with the more moderate approach to their southern countrymen. And that in itself is a whole other story, which kind of means this is the time where we transition into the history montage section. We don't have a lot of time to explain, but in the quickest way I can put it, tribes and people groups inhabit the upper Niger River Basin, the Empire of Mali becomes a dominant force, Mansa Musa makes his huge pilgrimage to Mecca, the decline of the Malian Empire, Moroccans defeat the Songhai, Timbuktu becomes the capital, huge famine in the 1800s, French occupation, it becomes French Sudan, independence, this guy becomes president, March Revolution, political system changes, Northern Mali conflict in 2012, things look good for a short while, but then another attack happens 3 years later, UN peacekeeping forces continue to send aid, the country slowly tries to accommodate the rapid population growth, and here we are today. Some notable people of Malian descent or born in Mali might include people like, of course, Mansa Musa, Ali Farka Touré, Oxmo Puccino, Salif Keita, Vieux Farka Touré, Ngoni Ba, Amadou Hampate Ba, Malik Sidibe, Sheikh Umar Sissoko, Rokia Traore, and Omu Sangare. Alright, that being said, we have to move on. Let's discuss Mali's diplomacy now, shall we?
Dun, dun.
For Mali, friends are interesting because historically they've already been linked to so many people across Africa, but modern politics and mainstream culture has also played a strong role as well. For one, outside of Africa, France is probably the closest friend. As a former colony, France holds close ties. French people make up the largest tourist group, even after the northern conflict, which was also partially aided by their military. During the Cold War, Mali somewhat kind of allied with Russia, however, it wasn't really that strong. Nonetheless, today Russia and their former Soviet Republic Armenia both have remnant ties, and there's even an embassy for both Russia and Mali in each other's countries. Inside of Africa, it's a little tricky because it depends on who you ask. Culturally, the people of the south identify closer with their neighbors and probably consider countries like Burkina Faso, the Ivory Coast, and Guinea as their best friends, whereas the northern peoples identify closer with Mauritania, Algeria, and Niger, each one also having high populations of the same ethnic groups like the Tuareg and Berber. With that being said, with Algeria, it's a little tricky. There was a hostage situation in the Algerian consulate in 2012, and since then, the Algerian Prime Minister has planned to work alongside the MNLA, which means South Mali has a little issue with them. In conclusion, Mali is a nation with thousands of years telling a story built off of sand, mud, rivers, and gold, and today, even amidst the conflict, they know where they've come from and they keep their story alive. Stay tuned, Malta is coming up next.
And that was Geography Now, Mali. Yeah. I've got nothing to add here at the end. This was well paced overall, I think. Of course, always having Noah come in is a great time. He's my favorite he's my favorite on the team. Sorry, Barbie. Yeah, that's all I've got for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.